guide my feet, hold my hand, I know you will walk with me, Lord, walk with me, Lord, walk with me, walk with me. Yeah, yes.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, David and Shonda. Thank you so much. Oh. How many of you were here last week? How many of you got a chance to do that affirmation that we did for healing more during the week? And anybody have anything interesting happen for you? I'll have to share with you that you know, it's not 100%, but I'll tell you, this thing is working so much better. Look at that. I have to show it. Definitely much better this morning. And it's interesting, I just happened to find a little video on some reflexology and was doing that and like, wow, okay, that's working. That's so almost normal, thank you God. All right. Well, you know, I was meditating on it's been a really, of course, exciting week for us and a lot of energy and focused on the new grandbaby coming and a lot of anticipation, a lot of waiting. It was a long labor it was over 24 hours and bless their hearts, you know, they're troopers obviously, so, so we're pretty excited about all that. But I got in my meditation one morning, I kind of got a title for my lesson, but I kept wrestling with it a lot. You know, I don't know why, but the title was Developing Second Sight. Developing Second Sight. And as I reflected and meditated on that, you know, oftentimes when we think about the idea of second sight, that's often been thought of as being able to foresee the future. And I have a little different idea, or a little different understanding that came to me about that idea of second sight. And so as I began to reflect on that, some things came together about what that really signifies for me and what it means to have second sight. And I think it's an important and valuable spiritual practice that we all have and that we all can develop even more. And I think that's part of our spiritual journey, is learning how to develop this idea, this practice of second sight. And I'll say more about what that means as I talk a little bit, but I always have to start off with a story naturally. So one day, I got stories about grandparents obviously, so that's, you know, it's always a good thing. This one was, lady says, one day my grandson and I were swinging on his swing set when he asked me, Granny, do you know there's a bird's nest in that tree? And as they were both swinging, she said, no, and show me, where? And when we swing up high, look at the top of the tree, he said, sure enough, there was a nest. Granny, he went on to say, you really need to look up more. Ah, the wisdom of children. You really need to look up more, yeah. And I had another wonderful story. Mom comes in and says, Peter, there were 2 cookies on the shelf last night. How come there's only one there now? Well, I guess it was so dark I didn't see the other one. I like that one. Oh my. And then there was Grandpa. Grandpa says to Grandma, why are you painting without your eyeglasses? Grandma says, well, I'm doing it to free myself from reality in my art. Someone once said, no great artist ever sees things as they really are. If he did, he would cease to be an artist. And Grandpa says, I guess that would explain why you're painting the lamp instead of your canvas. So I want to talk a little bit about sight and about vision. And I have an idea and understanding about this, that really there is something that you and I are participating in, but we're not necessarily always doing it in an aware or a conscious way. And so it's a way of kind of paying attention to noticing what and how we are looking at life, looking at things, looking at ourselves, looking at each other, and where we're looking from, I think is really important for us to really notice. In Genesis, verse 31, it says, "And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning the sixth day." You know, a part of spiritual growth, I think, is not only learning to see more clearly, but it's actually learning to see more from the perception and the perspective of the divine. I think it's one of the most powerful spiritual practices that we can undertake, is beginning to have a larger vision, a grander vision, to be able to look up more, to be able to see more from a perspective that is not just our individual, limited personality, ego view of ourselves, of life, and of the world. In 1 Samuel 16:7, "The Lord does not see as mortals sees. They look on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart." I always love that awareness. In our study this week on the prosperity class, they explained to us that the word that is translated as Lord is Jehovah. And the word Jehovah literally means, "I am that I am." I am that I am. And so the I am of us does not look on the world the same way that our ego or personality does. The spirit within us sees things more clearly and more beautifully. And when we practice coming from that space and from that awareness and practice moving into that ability to see through the eyes of the I am, what we find is that not only are we lifting up those around us, but we are being lifted up ourselves in the very process of doing that. In 2 Corinthians chapter 4:18, it says, "We do not rejoice in things which are seen, but in the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal." And so what we're talking about here in terms of second sight is that ability that Jesus talks about of seeing beyond appearances, looking beyond the appearances. And I see that often when we are willing and able to look beyond the outer appearances of situations and circumstances and recognize that there really is only one presence and one power, and that ultimately that presence and power is even in those situations and circumstances that we have difficulty seeing them in. And that's a real stretch for us oftentimes, isn't it? But it is the spiritual practice. It is the spiritual work, is being able to look beyond the what we see as differences or what we see as challenges or what we see as difficulties, and recognizing that there is something higher, something greater, more significant at work that is beyond our limited awareness and vision of that situation or circumstance. In Hebrews chapter 11, verse 3, it says, "For it is through faith that we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that the things which are seen came to be from those which are not seen." So everything that we are seeing and experiencing out here in life and in the world is coming from and through the invisible aspect of our being, through the invisible aspect of spirit, and it's coming through and manifesting through the energy of our awareness and our consciousness. And I talk about awareness and consciousness, sometimes it's coming through in a way that is coming from our subconscious part of our being. So in other words, we may not necessarily always be consciously aware of what we're putting out there. Oftentimes we're not. Oftentimes we're actually pretty unconscious of a lot of the things and the energies and the vibrations that we're putting out. And so part of our being able to shift is to really begin to look at and be open to allowing those things that are unconscious that we're putting out to become conscious to us, to be willing to look at and allow the energies that are not necessarily radiating and shining the light of spirit out in our world to to come into our understanding and to come into an awareness of the things that tend to trigger us in jumping into those limiting thoughts or those fearful belief systems. Make sense? And so a big part of what we're working to do is shift our ability to see and know what's the energy that I'm putting into this circumstance and situation. In a wonderful phrase that Eric Butterworth uses that always helps me to remind myself is when I see a difficult challenge or situation, or if I have a conflict with another person in some way, I ask myself the question, and this is from Eric Butterworth, what's in this from me? What's in this from me? In other words, what seeds of energy have I planted out there that are drawing to me this kind of experience and this kind of energy? The reality is I can't shift or change the energy that's going on in another person, but I can shift and change the energy that's coming into this experience from me. And by doing so, I automatically change the energy and vibration, and it will change the connection in the relationship in some form, in some way. It won't necessarily change the other person because they have free will, and thank God for that. Everyone has free will. Everyone has the ability to choose the energy that they're choosing to put out. So I can't change the energy that someone else puts out, but I can certainly change my energy about that. And if I change my energy about that, then something changes. Something changes. It may be that the change is that person is no longer in our lives, and that may be the thing that needs to happen. Or it may be that person simply sees things from a higher perspective and experiences things in a different way. I'm going to talk a little bit more about wonderful ways of doing that and working with this idea, this understanding of seeing differently. Jonathan Swift said that vision is the art of seeing things that are invisible. And so our unfolding spirituality is learning how to see beyond what we see in the physical world and understanding that there's something that is behind each and every person and each and every circumstance and each and every situation. Ashley Brilliant says, I could see much further if my vision weren't blocked by reality. And that's what we're talking about, is learning how to let go of this belief system that we have called reality. Reality, I love that, it was Yakov Smirnov, I think, was the first person I heard say this, is reality, what a concept. One of the things that's valuable for us to recognize is what we see and think is reality is really simply our own perceptions. We don't see the world necessarily as it is. We see it as we are, as Eric Butterworth says. And learning to recognize that when we are looking at a circumstance or situation, we're looking at the results of our energy and consciousness that's actually emanating in a way that moves through life and puts out there these circumstances, situations, and even people, drawing people into our experience in life that will reveal to us more of the essence of who and what we are and who and what we've come here to express and to be, and or let us know where we're not doing that and where we're blocked. Right? Yeah. Wonderful Martha Smock. How many of you are familiar with Martha Smock? Martha Smock was the director of Silent Unity for many, many years. Silent Unity is the 24-hour prayer ministry of Unity, and she's a wonderful teacher and writer. And she wrote a wonderful book called Turning Points, and it really is about these different circumstances and situations in life where we have the opportunity to make a different choice, to choose differently, to see differently. I love it. It's just a powerful work. If you get a chance to pick that one up, it's worth reading. She says, God is spirit, and spirit is located and appears wherever it is recognized by an intelligent entity. Let me read that again. God is spirit, and spirit is located and appears wherever it is recognized by an intelligent entity. So let me say a little bit more about that. The reality is that spirit is everywhere present, right? And yet, we don't necessarily know it or recognize it or experience it until we look for it and acknowledge it. Think about that for a moment. That's one of the most significant aspects. We can have an awareness that Spirit is everywhere, but unless we really are tuned into looking for and seeing that awareness of Spirit, then it might as well not be there for us. It's there, but it's not there for us because we're not tuned into it. See the difference? So there is a Spirit that is everywhere present. And what draws it into our awareness and experience is our focus on looking for it. Looking beyond the limitations, looking beyond the fears, looking beyond the frustrations and resentments and conflicts, and looking beyond all the difficulties and challenges and recognizing that there is something higher, even in those circumstances. And in the very act of doing that, we are participating and drawing it forth, not only in our awareness and experience, but we are actually being a catalyst for drawing that forth for others to see and experience as well. It's true, isn't it? You see, you and I are, the way we understand it in Unity's metaphysics is we are spirit, soul, and body. And spirit is that part of our nature that is connected with the divine, that is actually one with the divine, which is really ultimately the divine. It is the divine self within each and every one of us. And soul is our unique individualized way of expressing that divinity. The powerful thing about the soul, however, is the soul, as Charles Fillmore says, is pivotal. And what we mean by that is the soul can take its clues and its messages from looking out here in the world and creating thoughts and ideas and belief systems about itself from out here in the world, or it can take its cues from its spiritual divine nature. It can pivot its focus and attention. Does that make sense? And so we input into our soul, which is really our thoughts, feelings, beliefs, memories. It is that part of ourselves. It is, you might say it is our consciousness, but it is accumulation, really, in many ways, of experiences. And I'm of the opinion not only of this life, but many lives. You can accept that or not. It's not a doctrine or a dogma, but it's part of my belief system. That we come into this world with souls that have accumulated all kinds of thoughts and energies and belief systems about who and what we are and how we are to experience and express our divine nature. And some of those we've taken directly from source, from our spiritual nature, and they come through in magnificent and beautiful ways, and we shine a light, and we actually do express in ways that really impact life and the world in powerful, significant ways that are uplifting and healing and transformative. And we also come into this world with all kinds of thoughts and feelings and belief systems that are reflective of what we've seen and experienced out here in the world, and we somehow believe that that's who we are. We see limitations, we see fears, we see doubts, we see conflicts, and we create energies and thoughts and belief systems that are based upon that perception. And there in the rub is where we have difficulties and challenges in our lives, because we are drawing into and creating and vibrating from a place that is not the reality and the truth of who we are, but is a secondary thought and belief system. The body really is talking about not just the physical body, but the outer expression of our souls. And so part of our spiritual journey, part of our spiritual work, is to help practice and retrain our souls to stop looking for our self and identity out here in the world and start really looking back toward the essence of who and what we are, to accept our true nature and divinity, and to be able to express more from that place. And so our body is really the outer experiences and expressions of that metaphysically. We talk about it also in terms of we have our Christ self, which is that oneness with our divine nature. We also have our personalities. And we all have personalities. We have actually, believe it or not, we all have many personalities, depending upon who we're with and the circumstances and how we, and we show up in lots of different ways. And that's just, that is a part of who and what we are. And part of the challenge that we face in life is that we have a tendency to believe that our personalities is who we are, but even more than that, We have people that come into our life that that have their personalities, and they have many personalities as well, depending on how they are with us, you know, and depending on circumstances and thoughts and belief systems. And we have a tendency to believe that that's who they are. So we're looking with the eyes of our personality, and what we're seeing is their personality. And personalities don't get along very well most of the time. It's the truth. I mean, the reality is most of the time our personalities just kind of rub against each other, don't they? Occasionally we fall in love and we find this personality that reflects who we think they are supposed to be, you know, right? That's that wonderful experience of falling in love, and all of a sudden you've met this person that's just the perfect person for you, and it is such an exhilarating thought and feeling and experience, and it is, and I don't want to diminish the beauty of it, but the reality is, if you really are falling in love, what you're doing is you're not seeing this person's personality. If you're really feeling and experience that energy of love, what you're doing is you're having second sight. And you're seeing the truth and the essence and the beauty and the spirit of that individual or person. And not necessarily what they are for you, but what they are in reality. Isn't that true? And when we really learn how to do that and practice that, practice looking beyond the personality, practice looking beyond the, quote, the ego self. That's another term that we sometimes use that comes primarily, this view of it comes from the Course in Miracles, and it's a powerful understanding. But when we start really living life looking beyond personality, looking beyond, you know, the socks on the floor and, you know, and looking beyond, you know, the hair in the shower kind of things, you know, those kind of things that we sometimes let ourselves get frustrated and upset about life, you know. We all have those, but we are learning that that's not who we are and learning that that's not who they are. And when we do that, we really are coming into an awareness of true experience of love and connection. Our wonderful poet laureate, James Dillett Freeman, who wrote the prayer for protection that Unity uses, and we say every Sunday after services. He's a poet he's actually the only poet I'm aware of that actually has two of his poems on the moon. The astronauts took two of his poems up to the moon. One of them I'm pretty sure was I Am There, and the other one I believe was the prayer of protection. Yeah, and so he said in this wonderful book, The Case for Reincarnation. Again, you can accept that belief or not. I'm not. It's not a dogma. It's just one of the ways that many of us see things. He said, spirit is the animating, vitalizing spark that is God in us. This is what Unity calls the Christ self in us, the perfect and eternal being that God made us to be when He made us in His image and likeness. And so we have within us this nature that is the same nature that Jesus Christ demonstrated and showed. We have a Christ nature within each one of us. It is the essence of whom we are. It is our true nature. And the reality is, when we are in that awareness and in that space, we are one. We don't see differences. We don't experience differences. When we really come from that awareness and that consciousness, we feel and know the connection that we have. And it's a great empowering knowing and experience, and there's a power that comes through when we are able to see from that perspective that not only transforms us, but it transforms our relationships and our experiences with others. So one of the things that happened over the last week or so was I had someone email me and said that they had a falling out with someone that was close to them, and they were really looking for prayer and wanted to know what I suggested that this person do. And I was reminded of a powerful experience some years ago of some work that I did with this lady that was having a real challenge with a supervisor at work. And the supervisor, this person was going to school, and on her breaks, she was studying there at work. And the supervisor, she was back at work, but she had left one of her books open not far from where she was working. And the supervisor came by and said, if I ever see you with a book open here studying again, you're fired. And she had apparently had some real conflicts with this supervisor, and just all kinds of challenges and conflicts and different things. She felt she was a good worker. She felt she was doing her job well. She was actually more productive than most of her co-workers, and was doing a really good job, but he didn't like her at all for his own biased reasons. So we took some time to think about it and pray about it and listen about that. And I encouraged her to do a practice that I learned. I believe I first learned this from Catherine Ponder, some of her work, but it came through also from a wonderful book called The Handbook to Practice. I have to remember the name of it now. The Handbook, Hypatia Hasbrook, Handbook of Positive Prayer. Thank you. The words weren't coming to me. Handbook of Positive Prayer. See, we help each other. That's a good thing. Yeah. Handbook of Positive Prayer. And one of the things I encouraged her to do was to write a letter to this person, this supervisor's angel, if you want to call it that, to the spirit within this person. And write a letter of appreciation, of acknowledgement, of asking, of forgiving, of asking forgiveness, and then also doing another poem that it's actually a song also that we do in Unity a lot. And the poem was, I behold the Christ in you. How many of you are familiar with that? I behold the Christ in you. The first part of it goes like this. I behold the Christ in you. Here the life of God I see. I can see a great peace too. I can see you whole and free. I can see God's love expressed. I can see you filled with power. I can see you ever blessed. See Christ in you hour by hour. I behold the Christ in you. I can see that perfect one, blessed by God in all you do. I see God's work is done. And so the homework for her was to do that prayer for him any time that she thought of him. To do that prayer for him at least once a day for a month. And I kid you not, within 3 weeks, she was doing some homework in the break room, and she was in the break room studying during her break while she was working. And he came into the break room, and she was kind of nervous, and didn't know what he was going to say. And he said, "What are you studying there?" And she said, "Well, I'm studying some algebra. I'm trying to get my degree, and I'm required to take algebra." And boy, I'm just not. He says, "Well, I was a math major. Let me see if I can give you a hand with that." Wow. And he tutored her for months in this algebra course on their breaks at work. So you just, when you really have this perspective and this perception, you have the ability to shift. And a huge piece of the shifting is to letting go of our limited thoughts and feelings and beliefs and sight and perspective about others in our lives. And if we're willing to take this opportunity, when I was in ministerial school, one of my teachers, Bob Brummett, I believe it was, yes. He was teaching us about spiritual counseling, and it was a really wonderful spiritual class. And part of the work was in couples counseling. And one of the things that he always had his people who came to him for counseling do was recite that poem for each other every day for a month. And he says he never failed to have them come back and have whatever it was they were dealing with resolved. I have a feeling that if we really do practice that with each other, if we really do practice looking beyond the limited personality, belief systems, and ideas that we have, that we create, that we form, we will shift not only our relationship with others in our lives, but what we're doing in the very act of doing that is we are becoming and expressing more of our divine nature, more of our Christ self. In the book, The Mysteries of John by Charles Fillmore, he says, the Christ is the perfect God idea which is ever in touch with its source. Christ therefore realizes all that it can of itself do nothing and places all judgment in the law or the spiritual principles that work in our lives. And so by doing this, what we're doing is we're moving beyond our own limited thoughts and ideas and beliefs about the experience, and we're expressing from a higher consciousness and a higher place. So I'm preparing my lesson this morning, this last week I downloaded some wonderful apps, and they are apps that send quotes to me from some of my favorite teachers, from Deepak Chopra and Eckhart Tolle, and also from Tagore and Kabir and Rumi, and some of you may recognize some of these wonderful spiritual teachers. But I also have one from Abraham Hicks, which I like also. And I love some of their work. So this morning, you know, I love coincidences. You know what a coincidence is? A coincidence is God wishing to remain anonymous. So let me read to you the quote that I got this morning from the Law of Attraction from Abraham Hicks. It says, you have sole ownership of your vision, and the universe will give you what you want within your vision. What happens with most people is that they muddy their vision with reality. Their vision becomes full not only of what they want, but what everybody else thinks about what they want too. Your work is to clarify and purify your vision. Can be answered. I think I'm back on. There we go. Yeah, testing 1, 2, 3. There we go. So, you know, what I hear and see in this is that what we're looking for is what we're going to help generate more of. And if we find ourselves focused in looking at our personalities, we're actually looking through the eyes of our personality. You realize that? You'll know whether you're coming from your spiritual nature if you are looking for and finding and seeking the spiritual nature of those that you are in life with. It's a pretty good sign. If you are in that space of really looking for and connecting with and choosing to see from that place and seeing the Spirit, you've got a pretty good indication that you're coming from that place. The powerful thing about that is, as you're doing that, you are actually enhancing your own energy and consciousness and spiritual vibration in such a way that you are radiating Spirit. Does that make sense? Yeah. So we see the world not so much as we are, I mean as it is, but as we are. And what we are looking for, we are actually finding and we are emanating as well. So I'm going to close with this about friends and friendship. This is from Rumi, another one that popped up this morning of my quotes, and I thought it was very appropriate, so we're going to share that this morning. Rumi says, this is the kind of friend you are. Without making me realize my soul's anguish history, you slip into my house at night, and while I am sleeping, you silently carry off all my suffering and sordid past in your beautiful hands. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that beautiful? So let's take some time this week to really practice and look at how am I, or what is my sight? Am I looking at the appearances? Am I looking at the personality? Am I looking through my own personality at this situation or this other person? Or am I open to allowing a higher awareness, a higher vision to come through? Am I willing to look for and connect with the Spirit within those that I am in life with? And when we do that, we are lifting not only ourselves, but we are lifting the planet. So just a little homework for this week and probably the rest of our lives. Let's prepare for our meditation time. We got a wonderful song coming up, I know. So move into a comfortable place and let's take a nice deep breath and begin to allow the physical form, the body, to relax. And we bless the physical body with thoughts of relaxation, of peace. Breathing in, we allow peace to flow from the very top of our head, gently down over the face, down into the muscles of the jaw and the neck, down into the shoulders, down into your arms and hands, blessing the body temple with thoughts of wholeness and peace. Feeling that peace moving down your back and allowing your back to be supported by the chair that you're in. Just as we allow ourselves to be supported by the whole Spirit of God within us. Take another nice deep breath and let your chest and abdomen be filled, and release it and let go and relax and feel that peace flowing into your hips and legs, all the way down to your feet, and even through your feet out into the center of the earth. In this place of relaxation and peace, we are most open and receptive to knowing and feeling and experiencing our divine nature, the Christ within, and allowing that Christ light to shine. We turn our soul's attention to that divine nature, to the I Am. We take our cues from Spirit. We accept our truth and reality of our I Am nature. And as we do, we know that that light shines through the soul of our being and expresses out into the world, both in physical as well as mental, emotional, all of our outer experiences, we see them reflecting now this truth of our one nature and being, which is wholeness, is peace, is life, is light. And as we align ourselves with this knowing, we allow the eyes of Spirit to clear our perceptions, to look beyond what we sometimes call reality and know truth. We see those in our lives that we have had difficulties and challenges with, and we choose to look beyond their personality and our own. We allow the energy of acceptance and forgiveness and peace to shine through our spiritual eyes, to see the other in a new light, to be open to seeing and feeling and knowing the Spirit within them. That Spirit that is whole and complete, that Spirit that is love and light and peace. We choose to see their Christ nature beyond the illusions and the personality and the ego and the fears. We know they are one in spirit. And we know and ask for clarity and release and forgiveness, for peace between our spirits, and to see and know the connection we have on that deep level. As our daily word says, we go deeper and know there's something more from us and something more in them. Thank you, Blessed Spirit, for your healing light and for the consciousness and the awareness of the Christ presence. Thank you for the healing of our perceptions. And so it is. Take a nice deep breath. Let your heart be filled with this truth. Take another nice deep breath and just let a feeling of joy come in your heart for the knowing that healing has already taken place. And so it is. Amen.